Recorded live from the mats of Radical MMA in New York City. The Martial Culture Podcast. Your source for in-depth combat sports and martial arts insights with Coach Renee Dreyfus and Matt Peters. Ring the bell and let's get it on.
Welcome to another episode of the Martial Culture Podcast. We have a sharp podcast for you today. I've been thinking about that one for a while. Coach Renee is here and Matt is here, and we have somebody on the line with us. Let's get right to it.
Welcome, and it's pronounced Maija Soderholm, right? Is that I say your name correctly?
Soderholm. Yes,
Soderholm.
That was pretty good. I was wondering. I was just like, are they going to dare just say it out loud?
I wasn't going to say it. I'm going to let Renee go first.
I'm sorry. You know,
it's Maija,
it's
Maija and Soderholm.
Oh, got it. So you say the L. Got it. Thank you so much for being on.
Yes.
And you just came out with a wonderful book called The Hustler. And you, for people who don't know you, you are very, very well respected in the knife community. I, through Barry Eisler, our previous guest, and my friend, I came to know who you were. And then I saw that you posted this and that, and I did some research, asked some of my friends, and they're like, oh, she is legit, and you know, tremendous respect. So, and what I'd like to go back into your background and just see. We were talking before the podcast about how you got into martial arts and just your general background, how you came into training, and then we can delve into your theories of combat and the book itself. So what got you started in training?
Well, I say it in the previous book a little bit. I always wanted to be Errol Flynn. I actually know that Basil Rathbone was a better fencer, but, you know, when you're a kid, you just always want to be the hero. So I wanted to be Errol Flynn really badly.
Can I interrupt you there?
Swashbuckling movies.
Yeah. I love that you mentioned Errol Flynn and Basil Rathbone, but for our young listeners, you know, I know.
That's what Google's for, damn it.
Very famous stars of Robin Hood and a few other movies in the 40s, I guess.
Captain Blood.
Yeah, Captain Blood. Oh, great movie. Anyway. Yes. And originally he was
the Three Musketeers. There used to be British. There was actually, I think it was French TV show that was on British television with badly dubbed, and subtitles called The Flashing Blade. Totally into it. No idea why. So my parents took me to a foil fencing class when I was like 9 or 10, I suppose, and loved it. Thought it was brilliant. So that's how I first started, I suppose, martial arts in general. That didn't really last all the way through high school or anything because I discovered other things that were far more exciting. And then I pretty much didn't do any martial arts until after I left university. And I was working out at a gym that was in the UK, this very, very damp kind of cellar where all the weights were all free weights and rusty, you know, with all kind of old-fashioned hard men that went there. It was a great gym. Anyway, and this one guy was doing this kind of weird set of exercises. So I asked what he was doing, and he was like, oh, I started going to this Tai Chi class. It's really interesting. And that's really helped my weight training. I was like, that's exciting. And so I started going to Tai Chi, and it was weird. As in, of course, it's the UK again, it's cold and damp. And in my first class, they made you stand in a certain way in whatever we were doing. And I got really hot. My heart rate went up. And I was like, that's weird. So I kept going back. So I did Chinese internal arts, as they're called, for on and off for quite a long time. And I don't know why. You just keep doing something. In hindsight, I guess that was my thing. And then in 2000, no, I guess it must have been 1998, I first saw a video of my Filipino teacher. His name's Sonny Umpad. And it was as though I'd suddenly found what I had been looking for since I was 9. And I had the immense good fortune to train with him until his premature and early death in 2006. And since then, I've been sort of carrying on, I suppose.
And you that entailed you moving from the UK to America to train with him, or was it you just decided to move over for?
No, I moved here because I traveled a lot in my late teens and early 20s, and I met some friends. I live in the San Francisco Bay Area, so I live in Oakland. And I met some friends from here, and that one thing led to another, and I met somebody, and I ended up staying. And one of the reasons I'd come traveling through was indeed martial arts, but not necessarily to find a teacher. There was just a whole bunch of teachers here, and there was somebody related to the guy I was training with in the UK, I think. And anyway, it sort of was one of those stories. And then I started looking for more teachers, and one thing led to another, and here I am.
Wow, that's wonderful. And do you mind telling us a little bit about the history of your instructor and his background? Just
Sonny?
Yes, for those who are not familiar with him.
Sonny is from the Visayan Island group of the Philippines, from Cebu. And I think his dad was in the U.S. Navy, and so he had the option at the age of 21 to get American citizenship, and his parents really encouraged him to do that. And so he moved here, you know, with the citizenship to have a better life, in inverted commas. And at some point, I mean, he trained all the time. It was an incredible passion for him. He decided to start teaching, and slowly was teaching. He was actually one of the first people in the Bay Area to teach non-Filipinos, for which he got quite a lot of stick for, but regardless. And
he got a lot of stick, literally, I'm assuming.
Yeah. No, go ahead.
Sorry, that was just a joke.
He got a lot of stick for it, yes.
Yes.
But then at some point, he actually decided to dedicate his whole life to it and sort of become fairly reclusive. So he taught privately out of his house, which was in a Section 8 apartment down in the project. And we used to train in his living room. You could only get admission if you knew somebody else that already trained with him, and you were introduced and were taken to his house. His location of his training space was a secret. And he was kind of paranoid. Anyway, so it was like there's a real rigmarole to get in with teaching him. But once you were in teaching with him, he's an incredibly generous teacher. I've never seen anybody move around like him with a sword. It was just phenomenal. And random happenstance led me to somebody that was already training with him. So I got the opportunity to do so.
And his style, I don't want to put names on things because I think that's actually artificial, but would you consider it Eskrima? Would you consider it Kali? If there's a difference, would you consider it something else? I know names
the
are...
whole Kali debate is all very political.
Yeah.
What I will say is that the Visayan Island group is in the center. He had links through his uncle down to Mindanao and then all the way up to Manila. And it's also a port, you know, the city where I lived is a big port city. So the influences came from everywhere into this port. It's called Eskrima just because it happens to be from the Visayan Islands, Eskrima or Estocada. So it has some Spanish influence, obviously, in there too. But this whole thing with styles, I have an opinion on that is through Sonny. Like, the opinion comes through what I was told by him, and then perhaps mangled a little bit more by my own opinions. But what I understand is that back in the day, there was no system. Okay, so the Balintawak guys trained on Balintawak Street, so it's called Balintawak. It was really nothing to do with this is the box called Balintawak. So the Dosa Paras guys were all a bunch of guys that got together and decided to sort of, you know, collaborate. So this idea of them being separate systems is quite new. Back in the day, you know, one of the things that Sonny told me was that I don't teach you, you know, I show you what I do. Up to that, you know, after that is up to you and take it and make it yours. Basically, it's like if you lose in a fight, don't blame me. So every generation back in the day would change the name of their system to reflect that it was them. And it's nothing to do with ego. It's just like, this isn't my teacher's fault. This is what I came up with. So when he's passed, I'm actually a lineage holder technically in his system. I don't say that I teach Visayan style corto cadena, larga mano, eskrima. I teach what I teach, absolutely inspired by Visayan style corto cadena, larga mano, eskrima. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. I think that's what modern MMA is as well. You know, I was sometimes on Quora, and, you know, this thing where people comment, and usually the comments are really stupid and silly, but so I don't know why I do it. It's sort of self-flagellation. But then the person said, well, MMA is not well-rounded. And I said, well, you know, it depends how you see MMA. You know, there's the Dog Brothers MMA full contact stick fighting. There's the MMA It's multiple fighters, 5-on-5 MMA. There's also the movement of cross training that was inspired by, Russian Samba, by Bruce Lee, by the Shuto and shoot wrestling guys in Japan. So MMA is this really huge movement that started probably, modern MMA, I should say, started probably post-war, where we had a lot of integration of what people did and a lot of cross-pollination. And the idea is just take what works, leave what isn't, make it your own. And that's why I think,
Exactly.
Bruce Lee is considered a pioneer thinker, but really he wasn't the only one doing that. However, that's the person who I think he said it so eloquently: take what works, leave what doesn't, make it your own. And you should make it your own. And this is it's funny because I started in the traditional martial arts, and what you just said is exactly the origin of karate. So for people who don't know, karate is actually not Japanese, it's Okinawan. But there's two cities, Naha and Shuri. And Shuri is actually the capital. And the original names of styles were the Shuri guys, and then, there's those guys in Naha, those guys. And then there was no codification of like this or that or that. It was like, there's the Shuri guys, the Naha guys, and the Tomari guys. And these are just little cities. And they did this because they lived there. And it wasn't stylistically so different. Although, because body types were different, people would fight to their strengths, their advantages. It's very different from Japan, where there was, Japan has a history of, it's like sort of like also Germanic culture too. It's very, very organized. The Japanese are very, very organized. It's very different from Okinawan culture, which is, I think, more similar to Filipino culture because it is a more tropical place. It's very different. The feudal system is extremely different. It's mercantile based, not agriculture and feudal based, right? So Japan is very, very structured, and also it had to do, a lot of the structure in Japan has to do with, you were this job under your lord, and under your lord, you had this title. So title meant you got this amount of, rice, which was what you were paid in. You're paid in stipends of rice. So if you didn't have like an official title, you wouldn't get paid. So, like it made sense that they would, codify things a little bit more to make titles. You do this, this, this. So the codification has actually kind of a more economic orientation and a hierarchical, sort of class-based orientation, which is something that really didn't exist in
Sorry,
Okinawa.
I didn't mean to interrupt, but it makes sense, right? In a culture where everybody needs to know where everybody is in relation to everybody else.
Exactly right. And that has nothing to do with what we're doing today. Like it doesn't matter what lineage you have if you can't fight. It's very simple.
Right? I mean,
Yeah.
I can tell you exactly. Sonny knew the Cañete brothers. He knew Ancien Bacon from Berlin to Wax. He trained with Raymond Tabosa from the Floro Villabrillo style. When he moved here, he's a contemporary of Max Sarmiento, of Gilbert Tenillo, Angel Cabales, all these like famous names. So they all knew each other,
Right. I only know one of those names that you mentioned. I'm embarrassed to say.
Well, anyway, maybe somebody that's listening will know them all. But I actually say in my book, and I think it's really important, this idea that part of your style evolves from your enemies. It's like the problems that you have to face is also what is kind of developing why you do what you do,
Absolutely.
Like when the Filipinos met the Spaniards, they're like, the Spanish do that. How do we beat that? Let's do this. Or the Japanese, it's like everybody's enemies is also going to influence how they look, which I think why the Filipino arts are so rich, because they had a whole bunch of people coming through there, whether it's to trade or to try and invade them. So their art is very sophisticated.
It gives me, and we spoke about this before we started, but I had to say, I opened your book, and the first thing you say is context matters, which is so important and so true. And it was just, wow, this is absolute truth right there. And I was like, that's exactly it. People fight in certain ways because of their environment, the enemies they face, what their materials are allowed, what materials they have. Context absolutely matters, and also body type too. So technology that's available to you, everything, and so please go more into your bio as well. You trained. How long did you train with Sonny for?
All in all, it was 6 years privately.
Wow.
And then he died. He didn't look after himself. The man lived on cigarettes and Coca-Cola and candy and Kentucky Fried Chicken, and basically died at the very early age of 58, which was I still haven't really forgiven him for, honestly. But yeah, so previous to that, a couple of years training with one of his students. So,
and
that was all.
And then do you teach privately now, or how do you?
Yeah. I was given a very interesting challenge when Sonny died. He basically had a stroke 6 months before he died, and they took some brain tumors out, and basically told him, "You've got 6 months to live. We can't do this." So that last 6 months, we knew he was going to die, and we were around there a lot, training in his house. I mean, the screamer was his life, so everybody was going over there and playing and stuff, and he was kind of teaching, even though he was sitting or lying down. And before he died, he said to me, he's all like, "Don't teach preset patterns. Don't teach preset drills." I was like, okay. So that has actually been my challenge since he died. And so this is a very long way round of answering you, is to say it's very difficult to teach a group of people who, it's like teaching dancing. If you dance with a good dance master, you're going to get pretty good. But if two people don't know what they're doing that are dancing, it's really hard to have them know what they're doing at all. So I've tried groups, I've tried small groups, and I've tried privates. And it has to be like 2 to 6 people or privates. Otherwise, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
So mostly privates or semi-privates.
I found your book amazing, and I recommend it to any martial arts, even if someone has not done any knife fighting, because it's so universal, it's so meta, and how you approach training. And it's funny. I had a discussion with York, who was just on the podcast last week, and I said, I'm having this amazing martial artist on today, and I said, have you ever seen someone, and we're just talking about, like, you're holding pads and it's all like jab, cross, jab, blah, 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 and it looks beautiful. And then you see the person, they look amazing on the pads, and then they can't fight. And you're like, we know why that is, because pads are predictable. There's a set patterns. It's easy to teach. It's easy to make it look good. But fighting is chaos. Fighting is is the epitome of lack of predictability. So the whole concept of developing fighting skill is to stay away from the predictable. Now, that being said, how do you do that? And it's very hard to do. It's very hard to teach. I have a class. I just came from a class of 40 to 35 people. I'm like, how do I give these guys the tools they need to deal with the lack of predictability in a fight? And it's always my challenge. And your book is just so amazing in how it codifies that idea. But I don't want to take away from you. Please, what was the inspiration to write your previous book and this book? Was it to expand on that philosophy, or to critique martial arts out there, or how did you?
Training with Sonny changed my life. I can't, it was kind of like I went in, no idea what was going on. I spent 6 years basically feeling like I had my fingers stuck in an electrical outlet, and so I just left with my hair standing on end. And I don't know, maybe like 4 years in, I'd say I suddenly started to get what he was trying to do, and I was like, holy shit. It was like having somebody take a bag off your head and saying, what do you see now? And I was like, whoa. I mean, he literally changed the way my mind saw. It was like a weird Matrix moment or something weird. And what I wanted to do when I was writing was give people a sense of that. In the book that you just read, I put a story at the end that I wrote, like pretty much right after he died, of what the experience is like of training with him. And it was crazy, because even though he didn't articulate it this way, the theory that he kind of worked with, and you'll actually notice, I don't know if you're a fan of Steve Morris in the UK, some of his work talks about this, is that the human brain is incredibly good at maneuvering itself in space and not necessarily predicting stuff, but adapting itself to incoming stimulus. If you stimulate it in the right way, you'll get a good reaction without you really training it. So if I throw a tennis ball at your head enough times, you're going to get real good at dodging it. I don't have to say, when you see my hand do this, slightly duck, step out to the left and shift your weight, right? I just have to throw the ball at your head and you're like, ooh. And so Sonny's whole thing was that he would limit the unpredictability, but there was always some unpredictability. Whether the predictability was, I'm going to do left or right, you don't know which one, is going to be one of those two. Or if it was, I'm going to either hit now or I'm going to hit not now, that's another predictability. So he really put things in pairs. So even right from the beginning, you started to be all like, is it going to come from the right or the left? I don't know. So already your brain's in that kind of position to learn how to predict from clues. And it's not like you're intellectually going, oh, that person slightly sort of switches their feet or twitches their shoulder back right before they throw that. Your body is just understanding that visual information without having to intellectually think about it, so that it can recognize that pattern the next time that it happens, or technically probably not next time, but enough times down the road that you practiced it enough. And
to me, it's those intangibles that make fighting skill. It's not, that's what it is. And it's, I'm more of a, right now, I've done many martial arts. I probably don't know that much about me, but I've done many martial arts, but I'm very well known right now. I'm in the jiu-jitsu for my jiu-jitsu teaching, although that's not what I do in my judo teaching, right? And MMA, right? So it's more of grappling based. But the idea is to get to the point of flowing where it's just back and forth. And I'm working with my team and I'm like, okay, make a flow drill. It should never look the same. So I'm telling the guys, it has to get them ready to that. But okay, we train them enough times so that we can see that flowing pattern. And you see also, you look at the highest level boxing instructors, they're not like jab cross. It's sort of like, we're going to do a flow. We're going to do a flow. We're just going to go. You're not going to know what's going to happen, but you're going to be able, by seeing these little clues unconsciously, primarily unconsciously, because over time you just pick up that sense of, oh, this is what he's doing. Oh, I slipped here, pop, pop, pop. And I think that's, you really key on something. The problem I have is 99% of martial arts schools do not do that at all. That's everything is set and this and this. And funny you said that your opinions are a little bit unpopular before the podcast. I'm like, I can see why. but go. I don't want to over speak with you. I'm very excited to talk with you. So please go on and how you feel you can develop someone to understand those patterns, those unconscious movements, and to get those intangibles of fighting skill.
Yeah, I mean, in a way, if there's some connection that people could kind of relate to, it's like our random flow training, which is what we call it, random flow training. Flow training to me sometimes gets misunderstood as I do this thing and you smoothly move to the next thing, so I do the next thing and you do the next thing. That's not what I mean. It just means that everything has to happen in time, during, things moving around in a fairly randomized pattern, or however you want, but things are going to happen in time. In sword fighting or sword play, we do it from a distance without contact, but BJJ does it all the time when people roll. So it would be the equivalent of rolling with somebody really good that is maybe trying to teach you a concept and has already a few things online that they're going to do, and they say, all right, well, either this is going to happen or that is going to happen. And then they can do it on the other person at such a speed that the other person goes, oh, that's this one. So this is my counter or whatever it is, right?
Right.
So that's what it felt like to me doing the sword stuff, was getting my eyes in, if you like, because, instead of kinesthetically, my, the touch sense down. And Sonny would call it, there was two phases, basically, that your first job was to learn how to read. And by that, he meant, oh, it's coming in from the right or the left. It's like I start to understand, what's going to happen, what's an attack, what's going to hit me, am I in danger, do I need to block that? All those questions that come up. It's like, is this important? Is it not important? That sort of stuff. Is my hand, a target, blah, blah, blah. So that's stage one. And the other stage, because I don't want people to think that this is purely about reactive stuff, because I think that is the thing that most people mistake when I talk about defense and listening and reading and all that stuff, is that once you've got that down, the next step is that you start to make people do things, which means that I'm actually setting you up. I'm setting traps. It's like my whole strategy is basically to force you into that overhand right strike or whatever the thing is that I'm trying to make you do.
Yeah.
But if I can make you do that, I know what you're going to do next. And, again, quote Sonny, is like, if I know what you're going to do next, I can beat you.
I love the term you use in your book. You use the term tricknology. And I think it's like, it's
not
perfect.
my term.
Yeah.
I want to say that.
Oh, it's not.
TJ Obi for that one.
Okay, great. But that's exactly, I mean, I think that's pretty much what all jiu-jitsu is based on, judo. And when I say jiu-jitsu, I mean the larger grappling arts that, it's like you incentivize your opponent to do something stupid, or to do what maybe even not stupid, do something that so that you can predict that move and then counter, put him in the trap. So I would say I think a minimum of 3 steps ahead, and the third is what I'm always going for. But sometimes I'm actually 9 or 10 steps ahead.
Yeah, but eventually when you get really good, it actually doesn't matter. It's like, I don't care if you go left or right here because I have answers to both.
Yeah.
Does that mean it's like everything actually has a gift in every movement has a gift inserted in it. I don't know what it's like with grappling, but every time in striking arts I am striking, there's part of my defense that's missing. So technically there's an opportunity every time somebody does something. If they just defend, awesome. If they're always attacking, they're always open, So there's always something. So you start to care less exactly what they do. You make them, you want to go left or right because I don't care. Because, got you going.
No, you're absolutely right. It is exactly the same. And that's one thing I love about your book is that I'm reading a jiu-jitsu book, even though it's not. But it's a universal, like every jiu-jitsu guy should read it. Every judo guy should read it. Every martial artist should read it. Because I think high-level striking, technical trickery-based striking is exactly the same thing, not the kind of brawling that sometimes we see. But I know,
well,
Matt.
Exactly. I mean, you look at Lomachenko,
exactly.
Lomachenko, right? I mean, there you go. There's a great example.
Yeah, and even Terrence Crawford, I see a lot of what he does. It's not quite the same level as Lomachenko, but you see a lot of little traps, little sets, this and that. And any good tactical fighter is going to that. But definitely Lomachenko is like my absolute favorite. I love to watch him.
Yes.
Yeah. But Matt, do you have anything?
I am out of my depth here. I'm enjoying the conversation. I'm going to ask a stupid question about like Fruit Ninja or dicing vegetables.
Fruit Ninja.
You ever play Fruit Ninja?
No, it's like Matt before the podcast started. He's like, "Gosh, she must be amazing in the kitchen dicing up the vegetables." I'm like, I don't know if you should say that.
No, it's good. No, listen. Weirdly, I will tell you this: most people use a blade as though they never cooked in the kitchen. You know what I mean?
I don't follow
it like it's a club.
Oh, I see.
Right, it's like if you are cutting the Sunday roast, or if you are slicing bread, or you're doing tomatoes for your salad or something, it's like, how do you use your knife? You're not like hack. It's like you can, if you're butchering bones and cutting through bones, there's one way to cut. Does that make sense? It's like
absolutely.
People forget how to use knives when they put them in their hand and their face with another person. Put them in the kitchen and they use them completely differently. Everybody that knows how to use knives in the kitchen, well, I mean, I'm sure there's probably some people that don't, but...
Yeah, I'm on the I don't so well.
It's like, actually, the kitchen is a fairly good place to pay attention.
Yeah. No, that's really interesting. The only time I've been once in my life attacked by someone with a knife, it was more like a shank, but he was really trying to slash me because obviously he was not a stronger person. He was trying to mug me and slash me and steal my watch. I don't know what was in his head, but it was a very light slashing attack, but still sheared right through my Brooks Brothers suit, which to this day pissed me off because that thing was really expensive. And
shanking is definitely revolves no skill. Before we should talk about that a little bit because I do want to clarify about that.
Please.
But carry on with your story.
No, that's it. No, but it was very slash like, not and I mean it was so quick, it's happened so quick, but it was very slashing rather than like blunt force trauma. It's very, very fast and very fast and unexpected. I used to work as a translator, and I was walking to a job where I had to interpret, and then just I'm okay, boom, I'm in a fight for my life. It was just that was the only time I've ever experienced that, but it's exactly what you said. It was not like the same energy as someone trying to like throw a haymaker. It was very fast and slash like, for lack of a better
Yeah,
word.
I mean, and that's the other weird thing. I think real blades are a very different thing. Most people that have been around like swords and stuff, if somebody puts one in their hand, everybody else is going to back out a little bit. It's a little bit like firearms. It's like, you respect this thing and what it can do. It's only real idiots who are like, oh, what's this? And they start flailing around with it. I don't know how many people I know that have cut themselves on their own blades, but like, oh, look, it's sharp.
You know, I lived in Japan. It's funny. I lived in Japan, and I used to be very good friends with a lot of Iaido people who trained with Shinken, with real blades. And the first thing they say is, this is how you remove and put back your blade without cutting your thumb off. And it's like you do that for a long time because it's so easy to cut your thumb. And even masters like, you know, I did this 1,000 times and then I just lost my focus for a second and I almost chopped my thumb off. And it's like, wow. You know, so yes, real blades, it's a very different world, I'm sure.
Yeah, well, I also think that there's some kind of, if you believe in genetic memory, that everybody knows about, oh, well, if they just cut themselves or something, but it gives me a sort of a weird adrenalized feeling being around live blades. It's like live firearms. I mean, you get more comfortable with them and stuff and you can move them around, but there's a visceral sensation when you see one. And I bet, you know, in a chaotic situation, one coming out, it changes things. It changes your mental approach to something, if that makes sense.
Absolutely.
And I actually think that all humans have some sense of that unless they're really not connected to the bodies and minds.
Right. No, you're right. You're right. There's our primal sense of threat perception is not not related to our cerebral cortex. It's more in our reptilian brain. And I absolutely believe that we can recognize threats like the way insect recognize, oh, this is a poisonous flower or, you know, a Venus flytrap. You know, this is sort of like, I don't want to call it the spider sense, but we have these neurological pathways that are over millions of years of evolution that you can recognize threats. And you can see this might work with emotionally disturbed persons and mentally challenged individuals, people who are dealing with like schizophrenia or something like that. But their sense of threat is still there. Now, sometimes they choose to ignore it, but, you know, I've walked into rooms where people are completely schizophrenic, and if a large person the size of Matt is very big and looks kind of intimidating, even though he has a big baby face. But, you know, if someone walks in, they instantly give them more respect than they would me, who's a bit smaller. Because size matters. It's genetic. It happens even with people who are dealing with severe, you know, mental handicaps, you know, that can't perceive reality. But it's not your cerebral cortex. It's your you know, limbic system, your reptilian brain. So I absolutely am certain that's true for blades, although I can't speak from personal experience, you know. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
point.
I mean, yeah. I've only played with live blades with other people. I mean, Sonny and I floated live blades, I think, once. He kind of lost his temper at something was going on, and then he's like, okay, everybody really needs to focus. And I was like, oh, no.
Lost his temper? What martial arts instructors lose their temper? I don't know who does that. If you know me, people.
They ain't saints, especially this old generation. I write about that in the book, too. These old guys are not saints by any means.
Okay. You talk. Let's go back on the concept of developing the flow and just on a little bit more critical. What are some of the opinions you have that are very controversial that you would say that, you know, that got you kind of in trouble? But I would say just good truth talking. You know, Schopenhauer has those 3 elements of truth. There's like you know, absolute ridicule. Then there's super denial, defensiveness and denial, and then there's like acceptance of, oh, of course I knew that. You know, but I think we're in the realm where a lot of people are listening to what you or some other people have to say, and they're in the second stage of no, where actually, you know, it's true. But what are some of the more controversial sayings that or things that you see and the mistakes you see in people's training? That way some of our listeners can kind of learn and maybe improve their training methods.
Well, you know, obviously the most important one is the idea of no preset drills. Like, how could you learn anything if there's no preset drills? And that is slightly misunderstood. I think the way that I separate them is that solo practice, or practice that is about weapon manipulation, it is about accuracy, it's about some attribute that you're practicing. you can practice things on a target. You can practice things over and over again just to feel transitions, that kind of stuff. If you're learning just to have your balance in your footwork, you can definitely practice stuff over and over again with a partner just to get the positioning and the angle and everything right. But you really have to separate those things off from tactical ideas. So I don't like to do a lot of partner practice that isn't contextual at all. And I think that makes a lot of people glitch a lot. You know, all these people that do Sinawali patterns, for instance, which in Filipino art, you'll see people doing them with sticks, where it's like, do this, hit this, hit this, hit that, hit. You're kind of alternating.
Yeah.
And they're both standing in front of each other, banging sticks in the air.
And it looks so beautiful. It's like amazing. You're like, anybody who doesn't know martial arts, like, oh my God, that's so cool. It's like the coolest pad work. And you're like, yeah, but that'll never get you better. It'll never get you better. It's it looks great. But it's bullshit. Sorry.
It's bullshit.
Yeah, it's bullshit.
And it's getting you into some bad habits.
Yeah.
I can see why the drill was developed, because probably those combinations between the first strike and the second strike, or the second and the third strike, or whatever, probably have validity in that the other person may be going for that opening next, and so therefore if you do that after this, it's a good idea. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, I can understand why they evolved, but mostly you're never going to be face-to-face, square on with somebody, banging sticks in space. So if that's what you're used to seeing and reacting to, you've developed nothing in your body or your, senses to pick out when that thing happens or why it happens or what to do next, right? And you're also setting yourself up to fail if the other person screws with the timing.
Right,
or
yeah,
decides
exactly.
not to do a 2 after a 1 or whatever.
You're dealing with, I like to say there's a difference between, Mozart's the Magic Flute, right, or whatever he composed, and jazz. And, everything is set. You do this, do this. Of course, there's some interpretation, but you're basically doing this. And that's my problem with martial arts katas, where it's like, which has become a thing in itself, but it's like, a lot of my research has shown that the reason kata exists has nothing to do with fighting prowess. It had to do with health development and coordination development prior to...
I slightly disagree with that.
Yeah. Oh, okay, go ahead, please.
I mean, yes, I think it's good, but I think katas come after you know what you're doing as a way to preserve knowledge. That is what I think. Kata is incredibly useful if you go back to them after you know how to fight and how to deal with a chaotic situation. You're like, oh wow, look, that's totally in there, and that. Oh look, and that's teaching you that thing that everybody does wrong, because shifting the weight there and to the left is really important before you do this thing. Does that make sense? So it's kind of like a troubleshooting framework, but you have to learn how to fight first. This is why kata were invented. They weren't invented as a way to fight, to learn how to fight.
Right.
They were just a way of examining them after the fact.
It's funny because you do come from more the Chinese martial art tradition. I cannot speak to that tradition. My research is mostly evolved in the Japanese tradition, but I can say that this is how I've seen it. And, I deal with a lot of the primary sources and the material. And most martial arts that you see only had one kata. It's only that they've been codified, and like one style now has like 12 or 13, but really there's 1 or 2. And what it was is, if you look back at, 1520 or something, well, what happens is you're probably dealing with a society where, all right, your average Japanese or whatever doesn't have access to a lot of meat, doesn't have access to a lot of healthcare. So he probably has something like worms or dysentery, or maybe, depending on the cleanliness of the place, or, he's just very underweight and didn't have understanding of the physical training methods to develop strength. So what you could see is the a lot of the kata, not all, but things like sanshin and karate, things like that, were to develop the physicality needed to do the moves. And then they would do partner drills. A lot of the karate was like one-on-one partner drills then. So it was a 1 kata, just 1 per style, just 1. You do that as like your strength development or your coordination development when you're a kid. And then we start doing these partner drills. And then we start doing the jazz, what would be more like, holding pads or this or combative movement later. And to that is what I've seen in the Japanese tradition. I cannot speak for the Chinese tradition. And I know in Chinese tradition they have a lot of like 2-person partner drills, something I've never done.
It's exactly the same kind of idea, like as far as the arc of teaching. And I guess if that relates to what I think kata are totally valid, but I don't think you should teach that way. I mean, it's hard because then people don't really know how to fight, but I do think you want to separate the ideas out. And what I mean about all the fighting stuff is in there, that it's not just health, is I have done so many moves that I've since gone, oh my goodness, I saw that in a Tai Chi sword form, or like, here I am in this position, and I know that's totally in the other form.
Yeah.
Bagua Zhang is another art that is related to Tai Chi. It's all about walking around in circles. It's actually my favorite Chinese internal art because the footwork totally crosses over. And for the longest time, I was taught it as an empty hand art.
Yeah.
After I trained with Sonny, I put a sword in my hand and started to do everything a sword in my hand. I was like, wow.
Exactly. The Chinese martial arts, this is what I have to say is my controversy. Most Chinese martial arts make very little sense unarmed. But when you put swords or knives in there, they suddenly make a lot of sense. There's certain things you would never, ever, ever do in unarmed fighting that you can do all the time in knife or sword fighting. And Bagua with its, trigram pattern footwork makes a tremendous sense. And it's also similar to some of the Filipino footwork I've seen,
Well, yeah, I mean, conceptually it's like toe in, toe out, straightforward or heel. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like, yeah, okay. But yes, it is. I think as far as the way they use it.
Yeah, where you'll never, ever see that type of footwork in a wrestling room. You'll never see it in a judo room. And you'll never see it in a jiu-jitsu school, I wouldn't see it too much in a boxing or kickboxing footwork.
But you would see it in a Sui-Jia school.
Yeah, okay, that's possible. I wouldn't.
Just because my lineage comes from a Sui-Jia lineage.
Yeah.
So if you
Chinese
look at
throwing.
the setups for throws and stuff, and the counters to
I see what
the
you mean.
first thing
With,
not working, turning to the second thing.
Yeah, I see what you mean because it has the cross step over. I see what you're saying. Yeah, I could see that. Yeah, I could totally see that.
I'll send you a couple of clips if you're interested.
I am very interested, and definitely
cool.
I could see what you're saying in terms of adding in the grappling for the cross step. But anyway, that's fascinating. It's really, really nice to talk to someone who also we agree, but we also disagree, to have a really great conversation. No, it's great because, I like to have people test me on my opinions and say, well, let's bring some validity to our discussion. But I don't.
So drills.
Yeah, drills. Go ahead. Yeah, please. One question I have. Go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, all right. So one thing I find when I'm teaching is, of course, I want to introduce chaoticism and being able to make decisions on the fly or just move and flow. But when I'm teaching people who, for example, I'm teaching someone who is, they have no sense of combat. They have no sense of movement. They need to be broken down and given a pattern because, comfort, especially mental comfort, comes from the predictability. So what I do in my class when I'm doing raw beginners is I give them some sort of, pattern movement. And then we break the pattern. And it's like, well, actually here, but I don't do that for too long, but it's just for a sense of coordination and understanding balance and a little bit of precision. And I find that if I go too early to the chaoticism, it actually what happens is I've seen jiu-jitsu schools, I'll talk jiu-jitsu schools, they go right into the fire and they roll. And the person doesn't know what to do. So what they do is they kind of panic. They get this little panic response from the pain and the fear. And then they become like spazzy grappler. So they are sloppy. They can be combat effective in some ways, but they're sloppy. And then about 3 years in, they hit a wall and they never get better. So I always am afraid of that part where if you throw them into the fire too much without some sort of structure, and I don't free spar, I do these very specific positional sparring, okay, you're just here, he's trying to do this, you're trying to do that, and I add some resistance because I want to avoid that spazzy grappler syndrome or spazzy fighter where it's they just get tense and they move and they, I had a friend come visit the academy and he's training in another school and he's a great guy, he's training really hard, but I noticed as he came in, there was some really bad habits that he picked up because he moved to another place, but he because they're it's all about hard sparring, but I'm you're not really moving in a clean way. And you're going to get to this point where you're just not going to progress and you're going to kind of get stagnant. What do you feel about, you know what I'm saying, right?
If you said you were going to get the first book that I wrote, that actually has some drills in it. So you'll see how I do stuff. I would suggest that there's drills that don't have to be repetitive pattern, that aren't super chaotic. I also, like I said before, like the idea that there's only one element of chaos, in that it's either left or right, or it's now or not now. Really, the first thing I teach people is, are you in range? It's like, what's dangerous, what isn't? And they get their eyes in pretty quick about how far away they have to stand. And then that's just one thing that's constantly there that they have to think about. Our system never starts from standing still. We have this thing called pendulum footwork, which, like it sounds, is like a pendulum, and it swings into range and it swings out of range. So basically you're stepping in and then you're stepping out. And it has this kind of wave feel. So instead of it stopping when it's in range and then stopping at the back end, it's just continuous.
I cannot wait to train with you.
Straight line before we go around in a circle, that kind of stuff. So that gets added. So now you've got to be out of range, but as stuff's moving, okay, maybe on a straight line. Now you've got to be in and out of range as we're going around in a circle, or just like changing directions. Okay, that's another thing. So suddenly you can do these very simple attributes without having to make them, okay, step left, step right, step left, step right. Does that make sense? So
yeah, it absolutely makes sense.
It doesn't have to be complicated.
Yeah, no, it's fantastic.
The other thing that I really like doing is having a feeder and a receiver, so people have different jobs. Yeah. And that, I believe, that does tend to stop the chaos in a certain way. It's either reciprocal, like I do this and you do that, and now we switch.
No.
Or, we'll do like I'll do 10 of these and you do 10 of those, and then, we'll come back.
Yeah, no, I absolutely 100% understand what you're saying, and it's fantastic. And I love that. I'm imagining the footwork right now, and it's very simple. It's very similar to how I see striking footwork, where it's, number one, you're managing the distance and understanding where the first thing I teach, the very first thing is, are you in range to get hit? If you are, get out of range. Okay, if you're in that range and you can't get out, then you go in close. But you're mastering the range. Fighting is about mastering the range. And I totally see exactly what you're doing. It's fantastic, right? Can't wait to, I'm going to go to California. I'm going to pay you a visit if you don't mind. And I'm going to be a student. Like
you're welcome.
I totally get what you're saying. And I think that's really it's important, where if you're a teacher or you're a student and all you're doing is just repeating over and over again, and there's a place for repetition. Sometimes I do things because I want my students to just really, really get into a clean movement pattern. So it's like, okay, sweep, do it again. Make sure it's the precision, but it's practicing the movement. It's not sparring. There's nothing. We're just learning how to move your own body, but we have to break out of that pretty soon and make sure that that we can understand how combat really works. It's not dead. It's
yeah. But so here's a question for you. So say you're teaching like a sweep, right? Yeah. The action that you're trying to perform is the action that you're trying to perform. It's just like the one thing.
Right.
But it's pretty easy to have the other person only give you certain moments where it's actually going to happen.
Right. This is how I teach a sweep. It's even easier
if the other person's much better and going all the times that you're missing it in the time is to go, now, now, there it was,
right.
There you got it.
Right.
So you can make it randomized in the fact that there's only a certain moment in time that it actually works on every kind of in and out pendulum footwork or something.
Yeah, no.
That again is a randomized element.
I totally see what you're saying. What I do is when I teach a sweep is I never teach a move in alone. I always teach them either in pairs or in triples to begin with. Even the first, they're never alone. It's like, before I teach a sweep or throw, it's how do you create the action reaction, which is, the basic principle of judo, action reaction. How do I create? So I go left, I push him left. If he doesn't move, well, we have this pressure on his shoulder and he's going to, break his shoulder. Now he comes in and now you hit the sweep because he destabilized the other direction. So he went right for you. He gave you right. Where was this trap? Now, if he didn't react, so what I like to do is, okay, he reacts or he doesn't, but I stop. I'm like, make sure you do the reaction correctly so that they get the right. If you don't give them the right energy, they can't do the move. So I let everybody know.
The correct stimulus has to be given. Otherwise
exactly.
It's bullshit. It's like somebody not aiming at your head when they're striking towards you. It's just like,
Maija, it's so funny because I just left. I was just talking to someone. I'm like, don't hit my hands, hit my head. Like, because I had my hands up and I'm like, don't hit my hands. That's pad work. No, hit my face. Because I was telling him, aim at my face and I will react like a fight. And he's like, because he kept hitting my hands. I'm like, don't hit my hands, hit my head. Because, he's thinking pads, I'm like, no, let's try. It's funny you should just say that. It was amazing. Like, I actually don't hold pads for my fighters. I say, hit me in the face and I'll block. And then you counter me and I'll block that, or you hit me, just don't hit me hard. Like,
yeah,
so.
Great. I like that. Yeah, exactly. So it's the same thing.
Yeah. But yet it's hard to get to that level. Like, the thing is I worry about, and I want to have you on again. This is amazing. But I get these people, and first of all, I notice that, with our sedentary culture, and they are sometimes a little bit overweight, or they have no balance, they have no athleticism. And I'm like, okay, this is how you don't fall over. I was teaching this kid, and as he's walking down the stairs, just regular stairs, and he falls, almost hits his head. I have to grab his head, and then his head smashes into my thumb, and my thumb hits the banister, and I break my thumb. Because I had to save. I'm like, how am I going to teach this kid? Like, he just can't even walk downstairs. So I'm like, okay, all right. And now we're going to keep it really simple. And I didn't introduce any randomization because he just has to learn his body first. Like, we're not even at that zone yet. And that's what I find is even at a little bit higher level, where the instructors are not like, this is how they do in Brazil. In Brazil, it's like, I'll teach you a move for 5 seconds and now we fight. And they try to throw all this information at you and just see what sticks on the board. And then you just learn through fighting. But it's like it develops spazziness.
I absolutely agree with you. Sorry, I'm interrupting you.
No, go ahead. No, please.
So I can't remember if I wrote in this book or if it's another one, but I basically said that you've got to learn your internal connections, and then you've got to connect yourself to gravity so that you've got balance and can frickin' move. And then you have to connect yourself to the weapon so that you and the weapon and gravity and everything's kind of connected so you can move everything where you want it to go. And then you connect to the opponent. So there's all these connections that you have to move on and, have to work on. And I absolutely agree that there has to be some stuff that's all about you. It's like, can I stand on one leg with 100% of my weight on one leg?
Yeah.
Can I pivot on the ball of my foot? All this kind of stuff. Can I do it without falling over and keeping my balance? But then you've got this, and then as I'm stepping, can I grab my weight and do stuff, blah, blah. Then there's, can I do this with my sword and move my left hand and blah, blah, blah. And then there's me and the other person with the range and the timing and all that stuff that's connected to that. So, yeah, absolutely different sections. I agree. Can I say 2 things? Because it was in my head, and otherwise I'm going to forget to talk about them. One is the importance of defense first, going back to what you asked me about what is controversial to most people. And the other one is, I will say straight up front that Sonny's method, or the way that I teach, is not for everybody. It's not going to necessarily keep students. It is a difficult way to learn. I learned pretty much on the cusp of failure for 4 years. I had no idea what was going on, and I kept going back because it bothered me that I didn't know and I wanted to know. There was a whole other bunch of other people, not a whole bunch, but there was definitely a handful of people that couldn't hack it and left. So it's
because it's real. Because it's real. Real is not easy. Easy is the katas and the belts and this and that, and then
people
set patterns.
Patterns. It's comforting. You have it. It's very satisfying doing it,
and it makes you more money
with it if it gives you a jazz, but it's not the real thing.
Yeah, it's not the real thing. It makes money, and I think a lot of martial arts in the business of making people happy, not teaching them functional skills. They're just making them go home.
Which is fine, but just understand that the limitation is there.
Yeah. No, please go. And I love the concept. The very first thing that they teach you if you train with anybody who's from the Elio Gracie side of jiu-jitsu is defense, 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 defense. You don't have to win.
I didn't know that.
No, you don't have to win. Elio Gracie's idea is, I don't have to win. All I have to do is not lose. I don't have to win. I just have to not lose. So that's, very important part of Elio Gracie's style of jiu-jitsu. It's very, I wouldn't say passive, but very defense-oriented first. Everything is defense, defense, defense. And I try to keep that as well in my school as well. Very strong element defense. Don't get hit. A lot of times Brazilian jiu-jitsu's changed right now. And now it's like, I had one student, he trained in another academy, and he shot in for what we call a single leg takedown. And he got hit. And I call it kamikaze. Don't kamikaze. So he's on the single and the guy's hitting him. And then he lets him hit again and he finishes the single. But he was hit 12 times. I'm like, maybe not 12, but whatever. But I'm like, you think you got it, but he's not really hitting you hard. But really what happened was you just lost this fight. But you kamikazed in. And because we're not hitting you hard, you don't really understand that. But if you get hit, don't get hit again. right? Don't get hit, but if you do get hit, don't get hit again. And I think that that's something I really appreciate in your book too. It's like, if you're dealing with a weapon, the first and foremost thing is live. Go away. And I love how you talk about like,
to forget, isn't it?
Yeah, I love how you talk about how like a lot of combat is about like, dominance and these kind of more psychological factors rather than just simply self-defense. But it does these things of like, who's the alpha, who's this, and well, that term is kind of controversial, but you know what I'm saying. It's these patterns of these rituals of dominance and establishing pecking order, especially with animal populations, how you can see that's code wired into us. And so we don't realize that, oh, hey, if I keep on going this, I'm actually going to die. I'm not in a dominance ritual. I'm in life or death, and I can't fight the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to ruin your book, but everyone should read that.
I said, one of my. Sorry, I'm talking over you. I'll shut up.
No,
sorry,
please go ahead.
Carry on.
No, you go.
No, yeah, it's one of my favorite quotes. Is "Dying second is not a win." You don't die to kill, right? That's daft. It's like, yeah, if you have to die because you're already dead, take them with you, but don't do it the other way around. And you had a quote, I think you said in the Barry Eisler podcast, you were talking about a quote from Rodney King about the ego fighting.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Dominance fighting is basically, I'm not going to let this person dominate me, and so I'm going to behave in a certain manner. And you forget that dominance fighting has nothing to do with death.
Yes.
In the wild, animals do not kill each other for dominance. They kill to eat. They kill for a whole bunch of other reasons, but they don't kill each other to be the top lion in the pride or the top wolf or whatever it is. That's like a non-lethal interaction. And so if you behave that way when there's death on the table, then you're kind of screwed because all your tactics are fighting the wrong fight.
There was an incident right about a week ago in the Bronx, which is north of New York. And
I have been to New York City.
Oh, yeah.
I know where that is.
I'm sorry. I'm kind of thrown off by the British accent. I'm like thinking I've never been to New York or something. But of course you've traveled the world. I'm sorry. But so he's in the Bronx, and a guy bumps the other person in the subway, and the guy's like, "Why are you bumping?" And it wound up that the other person slashed the throat, and he died. So you thought there was in this dominance moment, and then the knife came out and he slashed his throat and he's dead. So it can. Why did you? I'm not saying you don't have to say anything or whatever, but you have to understand that any situation can involve lethal consequences right away. And I think, we don't, sometimes we don't see that. Like, you're like, oh, why'd you bump into me? Well, who the hell cares? Now you're dead. It just makes no sense. But it's also from a striking perspective. I see I'm very critical of Muay Thai. It's because Muay Thai, the paradigm a lot of times is based on competitive orientation for making money in terms of gambling. So in the beginning, they just stand in front of each other and they kind of trade kicks, and they don't really move that much because there's this whole other side, context is king, where the gambling has to happen because that's where everybody makes money. And then they start fighting in the second and third round. So what you're actually seeing is something much more than just fighting. It's about money making that has nothing to do with self-defense or anything like that. And I don't like to stand in front of the guy and trade things that can happen in almost anywhere. I don't want to pick on Muay Thai officially, because Muay Thai is a great art, but I'm saying sometimes you see people just stand in front of each other and trade bombs. And I said, when I'm teaching my students, I'm like, if you guys both had knives right now, you're both dead. So when you're striking, imagine the person's trying to stab you. Get out of the way, hit him, get out, hit him, get out, move. Don't stay in the pocket and just get hit, and defense first. First, don't get hit.
Bernard Hopkins talks about that. There's a great YouTube clip of him talking about. I mean, he fought. How old was he? 40-something when he won his last.
Yeah, and I'll look that up. Yeah, I know he was quite old, and he was training.
And he's a very famous defensive fighter, and he said he lost a lot of TV time or fights because he was boring to watch because he's a defensive fighter.
I also know Hopkins.
Why.
Hopkins was in prison for a while, and I know he said his prison time informed his fighting methods. Because so I'm sure. Yeah. He had some tricky, I don't know exactly, but he had some tricky scenarios where it was evasion and defense first, because he
So that's what you were saying about the spectacle and the gambling. Sport was originally invented pretty much for those
reasons.
ideas. It has to be repeatable. Money needs to exchange hands. right? I mean, that's what, and it's brilliant. It's a brilliant way to keep armies that are not fighting wars busy, young guys busy, fighting each other for money and not actually killing each other. And so the idea that it has to be spectacle, people forget that that's part of the game too, like you were talking about with Muay Thai. It's not real, in inverted commas, in the sense that it's real in its context, but it's not real as in that's the realest thing everywhere.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even MMA, and I'm a strong proponent of fighting within the MMA rule set, but I also have all requirements for my students to have to spar with we use a taser knife. It's plastic, but it's shaped like a knife, and it has a very high electric charge. Or yesterday, I had a very small taser that I hid in my shorts and pulled it out as I was rolling and tased my student Philip. And as he had to deal with me, actually, then he disarmed me a few times. We're on the ground because you don't know what that happened. Every student of mine has to understand what it's like to in close quarter with someone trying to kill you when they're not just barehanded. But
can I give you my opinion on sharp knives?
Of course, yes.
It's interesting, and you talked about it in another one of your interviews. Maybe it was even in the Barry interview again. I can't remember. So yes, I think they're a great training tool, especially for people that think they could take knives away from people. Like cops training or something like that. Yeah. I also think I love the idea that you're just kind of surprising people with it. What I will say, because I actually fought at the Dog Brothers gathering 2007, I think. I did a couple of knife fights in inverted commas there with sharp knives, is that if it goes on too long, after the first cut, I think you feel it. You can't feel it anymore when your adrenaline is up.
Oh,
so they lose their efficacy.
Yeah,
that was my experience.
No, you're absolutely right, because it depends on the brand you buy too. Because I noticed that exactly, the charge goes down too. So I like the first one is really strong, and then the second and third are not as strong. So I make sure they're fully charged, and I keep it like about minute only, and then we recharge and we swap out, because I absolutely found the same thing. The first charge is very, very, very painful, and the second one's not as bad, and like by the fifth one it's like not even anything, because of course there's only so much the battery can hold. And also I also think
I think your adrenaline comes up and you're just like, screw that guy, and I'll just take that, right?
Yeah. Well, you know what I think it depends I'm a connoisseur of these tasers. It depends on how high the voltage is, because there's some that it's really bad.
2007, so the technology has maybe improved since those days.
No, I got tased yesterday and I screamed like a newborn infant. I was like, because I was stabbing him and he grabbed and wrist locked me and made me stab myself, and I was like, yeah, okay, you won. And yeah. And also, like, if there's we play it like if there's a stab anywhere near the neck, the body, it's just done. Like, you just know we got caught. There has to be an understanding. We do it with striking too. There has to be an understanding, like, oh, I'm not hurting you now, but in reality, you'd be dead. So let's use some logic here. Yeah.
I put a couple of photographs in my book that I got from a Marine medic that I know. So I said, hey, I need some injury pictures in my book, just some slice ones, nothing like totally lethal. Can you send me some? Of course, then he sent me like 3 pages worth of really gross photographs. The ones I put in the book are like the least gross. But when people, that's one of the big things people say to me. It's like, oh, I'd take that cut. And you're like, really? No. Which is why I put those 2 pictures in the book. Because sharp knives are crazy. It's like the amount of damage they can do. I think it's a very interesting conversation about fight enders. And honestly, just to make it clear, I don't teach knife fighting. I teach sword play. I don't want anybody getting the wrong idea that this is the place to learn how to come and shank people. There's plenty of people out there teaching you how to do that. That's not my trip. I teach tactical thinking with swords because it's the quickest path to it. But let's just talk about edged weapons in general. And things that end fights and things that kill people and things that you really don't want to get cut by are all different from each other. And I think people get very obsessed with we've got to go for the neck or something really important. I know a lot of the historic European martial artists in their tournaments, they're like, that cut wasn't hard enough, and so it didn't do damage. Like, wow, really? It's like, what kind of clothing are you wearing?
Right.
How sharp is the blade? My teacher's favorite cut for self-defense purposes, he told me, was straight across the eyes or straight across the forehead. He's like, if you've got enough blood in your eyes or you can't see, you cannot chase me.
Yeah. Also, another one,
cut.
interesting.
Absolutely nothing to do with that.
Yeah, and interesting that I think is very neglected to think about from my community, the unarmed community, is how much a nick in the femoral artery will. You're dead. You're dead in like 4 seconds. Like in the femoral artery, and they don't even think about it. I'm like, okay, you're gonna open your legs like that, slash, you're dead now. And so the understanding, I take privates from a physician on anatomy and understanding how it works, to understand like how he told me how in the ER, this was another physician, told me in the ER, how a guy came in, he walked into the ER and he's like, yeah, I got this knife stuck in me. I was doing this thing, and he's just talking, and he says, call your family. And the guy's like, oh, I think I'm fine. He's like, no, call your family, because the minute you pull that out, we've got about 4 seconds to repair the damage. And if we don't, you're dead. And he's like, what? I feel fine. He's like, no, because it was like a Swiss Army knife kind of thing or something, right? And or a bolt, or I forgot. It wasn't a long thing, but it went in certain places. Like, and the guy walked in on his own power. He's like, yeah, I got this thing stuck in me. I was doing something, and he's like, no, you're gonna die if I don't patch this up in 4 seconds. And he died. And he died. And he literally, like, he was able to walk into the ER at the time. And the minute they pulled it out, he was, they had to clamp it up and this and that. And it was not successful. He did pass away. So I'm sorry if I think we should have you on because I had such an amazing conversation with you, but I really wanted to participate as well. And I talk too much. My wife says that. But you're absolutely fantastic. Where can they buy The Hustler, your new book?
It's on Amazon. You can find The Hustler, which is actually the second book. The first book I wrote was called The Liar, the Cheat, and the Thief, Deception and the Art of Swordplay. And then the second one is called The Hustler, Swordplay and the Art of Tactical Thinking. So they're both on Kindle and in paperback. They're just on there. So that's all. You can also see YouTubes of me and my teacher if you search on YouTube and search for Sonny Umpad. My channel is Random Flow without any vowels in it, so you can find out what I do. I have a Patreon page too, if anybody's interested in following that.
Fantastic.
Art of Deception.
The Art of Deception.
So, yeah.
Okay, fantastic.
Yes, it's called Patreon/Art of Deception. Yeah.
You know what I'm also going to do? I'm going to buy a copy of that book for the podcast, and we can have like a little bit of another raffle like we did for Barry's book. What do you think about that, Matt?
Sounds great.
Matt, do you have any closing thoughts?
I'm going to go buy some knives.
And practice in the kitchen, right?
Yeah, I'm going to make soup tonight.
They're beautiful objects. They're absolutely singular. There's nothing else like them. A blade is an incredible human invention that only has one job, is, like a sword, really. I mean, knives can do many things, but swords, they have one job, just to kill people. I mean, and it's this beautiful object that has this horrible darkness to it. You can see why in myth it's just always full of light and dark and ambiguity. They're fascinating.
Yeah, and there's so much mysticism attached to a sword. The symbol of, King Arthur and his kingship was the sword, the symbol of the Japanese soul, even though tactically it wasn't true. Japanese used, samurai used archery much more, but the symbol of the soul of the warrior is the sword. There's so much imbued in that mythology of the sword is definitely true.
Yeah, life and death right on a razor's edge. It's the only thing that you can kill with it involves no effort.
Yeah.
Like it'll kill without no power associated with it until obviously the firearms were invented. But yeah, it's got a long history. Very weird, interesting thing.
One last thing. Do you have any funny stories to share us? One last interesting or funny story before we go. Oh, no.
You can take it.
Yeah, one last story before you go.
Oh, goodness. A funny story?
Yeah.
I'll share a story about Sonny, which is one of my favorites. Just talking about tactical thinking. Sonny was a dancer, and he would go dancing to these nightclubs around the Bay Area where they would have competitions for money. And Sonny was an amazing dancer. He danced the hustle, which is why the book is actually called The Hustler. And all the women liked to dance with him because he was an amazing dancer. And he was at one nightclub and he won this thing and apparently pissed off somebody's boyfriend because this kind of gang it was their territory were going to wait for him on the way out and kind of basically do him in. And he knew this was going to happen. But he also knew that there was a bunch of cops out Saturday night, and apparently I guess they knew there was always going to be trouble. So he goes into the bathroom. He undoes his cigarette packet. He was an avid smoker. He took out the tinfoil out of the cigarette packet. You've got to be old enough to understand these things. And he made a small blade-looking object. And as he walked out, he walked out and just kind of flashed this thing underneath his hand to these guys and basically said, I don't want to fight, I don't want to fight. And they all kind of slightly backed off for enough for him to get out and through the parking lot and to his car. And then immediately, because they'd got away, one of them went on over to the cops and said, that guy's got a knife, that guy's got a knife. And so immediately they went over there to check, and he just crumpled the thing up in his hand. He was like, I don't have a knife, and they searched him, and so he got away.
Wow. Very tactical thinking right there. That's a fascinating story. Thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was absolutely wonderful having you on. I look forward to much more collaboration. And we do have one thing in common. We're both people who trained Livy alone. And Barry Eisler's character.
Thank you so much for having me. This is great fun. Invite me to New York or come and visit California.
Absolutely. 100%. Thank you so much. And if people want to find you, The Art of Deception and also Random Flow without the vowels and The Hustler on Amazon.
Just Google. Yeah, you can Google Sonny Umpad. My name's Maija Soderholm. It's a really weird name. It's not hard.
Fantastic. Have a wonderful day, and it's such an honor speaking with you. I really think the listeners are going to enjoy it, to either explore the knife world or just to take your concept.
Sword
work. Sorry. But also to take the more meta concepts that you really talk about in the book and improve their martial arts training. Right? Thank you so much.
That's what it was for. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much too. Bye.
Wonderful. Bye-bye.